From episode number 3, where we found out about Kristen Harper's proposal via Jared Goff and what it's like for the rest and recovery aspect of things, we transitioned to episode number 4, and this was a deep, impactful, powerful conversation about finances. Episode 4 was a very difficult conversation, enlightening and powerful conversation about finances. And before we kind of dive into the conversation, I think Mike just explained we had to make some on-the-fly adjustments as far as what we were going to talk about. There was definitely some tension in the room, even at the hotel after those photos leading up to this. So just kind of describe from the photos to getting on set and hitting record.
Yeah, if you didn't hear literally our last podcast, we just discussed taking photos at the hotel. So right off 3, we're shooting 4, 3 and 4 shot the same day. So with that, we are sitting at the hotel, and to be super transparent, you have the entire kind of main production and creative team a little bit on edge and concerned on this episode 4, right?
Yep.
Around finances. It is a extremely difficult conversation. I think everyone's grown up and like you kind of never talk to your parents about finances. It's like this thing that we all get into our 20s, and we're just like, no one's ever taught us anything about finances. And that's because in our society, that's just not something that we discuss. So to put 5 very powerful women together around a table and ask them to have an open dialogue about finances, and especially women that are in the NFL and are looked at in these kind of profiles, it's kind of like, oh boy, this could be tense. This could be interesting to see how vulnerable and how open they will be. So we sat down, Mitch, myself. You were trying to still get off the production for creative. I feel your pain there.
Well, no, but it was good because I think you guys did a great job.
And the production team, we're all sitting there with Josie rewriting. I mean, hour before the show, questions and evaluating the order of them. How do we get to certain topics in a way that we need to without coming off in inconsiderate ways. And so it was tense. It was the most tense going into, I think even the wives they were aware that they were talking about finances. And so I think everyone sat down at the table and was like, all right, here it is. And they killed it. And so if you go back, I think Josie said this really elegantly to the wives prior to them getting on set, and I also reinforced it, was just like, this show is supposed to be about woman empowerment. The word empowerment gets thrown around a lot. To truly empower people, that means you have to take the lead and be vulnerable. And people need to hear the realities. And I'm really proud of them today because they said things at this table that even us were not sure if they would say. Definitely. And there was crying, laughter, moments of like excitement and hope, and like it was awesome to watch unfold. And honestly, it was my favorite episode that was shot so far.
Definitely, I agree. Hannah, there was a lot of powerful, inspirational, all the things that Michael just talked about. But when you were sitting behind the camera right now on the couch, watching and listening to this conversation take place, what was going through your head?
I think initially, kind of just bouncing off a little bit of what Michael said, just sometimes talking about finances can be very uncomfortable and awkward. But I think something that they did talk about during the episode that made it a little more like it shouldn't be, because like they literally said like you can Google all of like their husband's contracts for the most part, and if it's that accessible, I guess, like why are we like trying to dodge an elephant in the room? So I thought that they did a really good job of really being straightforward with like their particular situation. Like, because I know even Josie said like there's a discrepancy when it comes
$100 million gap,
or discrepancy. I don't know if that's the right word, but a divide a little bit between contracts, even at the table, and of course within the NFL as well. So I thought they just did a really good job of like letting kind of that financial guard down of like being uncomfortable and being awkward. And I also loved the difference of opinions on certain things, like the different, like even whenever they started talking about like the prenups and stuff, it's like, okay, it sounded like Allie and Isaac have one, but like Whitney and Dalton do not.
Yeah.
And so I liked how they had the mutual respect for each other to be like, hey, like this is what works for us, this is what works for you guys, like, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm not going to judge another person or another relationship based on a decision like that they made for themselves in that situation. So I really loved how they kind of did that and brought that aspect to life too.
Yeah, I have to agree with Anna. It was probably one of the most powerful and I think cool things about the episode is, again, you're bringing a very diverse group of women together that do make very different incomes, and when they're talking about going through that prenup process and what those conversations look like with their husbands, and some of the wives are doing well off for themselves and some even better than their husbands are doing. What do those conversations look like, and how do you come to a mutual agreement on not just protecting yourself, but also protecting your significant other, in which they love, and it was cool. It was really great to hear.
I thought it was interesting, just like the way that prenup got brought up, and there was almost like a sense of relief in the room.
I think so too.
When
When Whitney said, like, I'm just going to say the word prenup.
Yeah.
And everyone was like,
okay, we can talk about it.
Yeah. A bubble was like popped.
Yeah, because it was almost like, and we'll pull the curtain back on this because that's what this is all about. We had talked about at the hotel ahead of time where prenup was mentioned, and everybody, when we were talking about it at that point, was like, oof, I don't know. Sure enough, Whitney brought it up. Josie had a little sigh of relief as the host, being like, thank God I don't have to do that. But were you guys almost fascinated at the conversation that took place with all that, kind of like you were talking about, the way that their money breaks down and the conversations they have?
I think just to piggyback a little bit on what you said, I think prenup has a bad connotation to it. And I thought it was interesting that Whitney was the one to attack it head on, because she is one of the younger talents at the table. And it probably is a testament to how the conversation is changing, just like overall around like what a prenup is. Because I do think it's something that like probably you've talked to your parents about, and if you're in that 30 to 40 late 20s range, it is a little bit taboo.
Why do we think that prenups are so kind of taboo or uncomfortable to bring up or to talk about? Like, is it fear that people have, like, that they'll be judged for whatever decision that they made within their relationship?
Yeah, I think what I always thought about a prenup, or I don't know if this was taught or just like what was around me, like being nurtured, is that you are essentially signing that you are probably going to get divorced and this marriage is going to fail. And that was always my thought of what a prenup is.
Preparing
Obviously,
for failure.
Yeah, and like why are you doing that if that's not the case? But obviously now knowing what a prenup actually is, it's not signing your marriage away.
Yeah, I think the wives talked about it today at the table. Was the minute that comes up, the question is like, why do we need to worry about that if we're not going to get divorced? And so I think that's the reason why it's taboo, because no one wants to talk about that happening and the realities of what that looks like. And I think in our society we kind of ignore divorce. We ignore that's a thing until it's literally a divorce. So I think like that's the tough part about it. And so I don't think it has a good meaning because it's directly tied to one of the most hard things to go through for anybody, and that is a divorce. And so it's not easy. And I think like they talked about, like Kim talked about, like the NFLPA educating the players on it. And so, things I know I've seen on like the education of why everyone should sign a prenup. Like lawyers are always pushing prenups, except for Josie, who's a lawyer, but I get her sentiment on that too. So, but the reason is like they say like, well, you don't drive a car without getting car insurance. So by getting car insurance, are you thinking that you're going to crash? right? So like, why are you already presuming that you're going to crash your car, right? So like, like we could debate that analogy, but like that's what they're saying essentially.
Right.
Right.
But I also think like it depends on how you look at a prenup, because everyone's different. And again, every relationship approaches the conversation and the execution of, or the decision of whether or not to do it. But like some people think like, oh, a prenup, like let's say like even like when we got married, like there's like neither one of us like really had anything. You know what I'm saying? So like whenever we get married, like anything we build past that point, I do feel like is like both of ours. But like, I do understand like, I think when Dalton and Whitney, I know they ended up not getting a prenup, but I'm just saying like Dalton was already a couple of years into his career whenever they met. So like he had already kind of started his career, had money, and then like it makes sense. Like it may be in that situation for them to get a prenup, even though they didn't. But I'm just saying I see a little bit of a difference in that.
I think when divorces happen, you're very emotionally unstable.
For sure.
Just due to
the nature of it.
Yeah, and I think to be able to go through how you're splitting your assets and finances in that way when you are in a place of love versus like that place of strain is probably more of a predicator that you really do care about your significant other and you really do love them, because you're not going to allow emotion to get the best of what the potential outcome can be.
I think that's exactly it. The thing that I took away, and I heard somebody on set after we were done recording kind of talking about it as they were getting all their wires taken out, there was a genuine proof of love, like on set. That's not cliche. That very evidently came out that Kristen, for example, very much does not care about the money. I am marrying the man because I love him.
Yeah,
so,
and for viewers that are behind the cameras, and it's easy, you can say, well, of course she's going to say that. But
yeah.
if you were in this room today and you saw the emotions that were being portrayed, you would feel it's as genuine as it could ever be.
Yeah,
right? We get the privilege to see it firsthand and see her facial expressions, see the tears.
And off camera.
And off the camera.
I mean, she was on FaceTime with Jared.
Eating in and out.
3 times today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every time she has a chance to talk to him, she's there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like it's amazing for context, like you said, like offset, behind the scenes, that's what the point of this is. He's called multiple times FaceTiming. Matt and Isaac, who I get to also call friends, both called me on day one saying, hey, how's it going? What's happening? Can you send a photo, right? They're true cheerleaders of what their wives are doing. And you can see the true love. It has nothing to do with the money.
Definitely.
That just happens to be there, and that is cool to see.
Yeah. Let's end on this one for episode 4. I thought it was fascinating about the teams that every individual has behind them. Financial advisors, real estate agents, all those little things that add up to make a team of them. What stuck out to you guys specifically about those teams that each of them have built behind what their brand and identity is?
I mean, yeah, one thing I would just say is I don't think it's a coincidence that all 5 sitting at the table have teams. And I'm a big proponent for it. I mean, we are part of the team for 2 of them. So, and when I think of it, the significant team. I mean, I know Allie and Isaac's, financial advisor. I know their CPA firm. Like, we're their agency. So, like, we know them and we know how great these teams work together. And it takes an army to really facilitate the growth and ambitions that these wives have. And I think it's just really powerful for them to stand up here and say that it's okay to have a team and that you should go and find people that are really good at it. You don't need maybe the degree of a team that they have, right? But it's good to get financial advisors. It's good to go find help in these things. And it's, that to me was interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I really liked what Allie said about their just how highly she spoke of their financial advisor. That he's truly like a part of their family, and I think that's so necessary when it comes to someone who's dealing with your money. and like so much trust has to be there. So I loved how she talked about him, and also in the way like after they got married, like it's not just like, hey, like I need to only talk to Isaac. Like I'll talk to you too. Like whatever questions you have, whatever like situations you want to get into, like I can have those conversations with you, and not like just Isaac. Like she came in and she is like a part of the family, so it's not just Isaac's financial planner. Like it feels like they're on a team now.
No
so I
doubt.
really love that.
I'm very interested in like how they build their teams. And maybe for season 2 of Women of the League, we kind of touch a little bit and dive deeper into
like how you find these people.
How you find such a trustworthy team.
That was dropped in the ear of the host and didn't make the conversation, but
it didn't, because there's so much content that was being flowed throughout the table. But I think that is my biggest question coming away from this episode is, how do you truly find people that you trust to deal with that magnitude of financial gain and investment? And you can't be fucking around with that. That's some tough, big time decisions to make. So
there's also people like on set, right? It's easy to say this question, that question, and then when you're watching it at home, you're like, oh, I want to know what the follow up is on that question. But like you said, there's a whole crew downstairs saying, hey, put this into Josie's ear. And Josie, like at one point, I remember we joked about it afterwards. It's like, like, oh my gosh.
It's
Stop it.
It's easy to say that, but it's, chances are if you have a question at home that was not followed up on,
we probably did too.
We did too, and it probably was brought to the table, and it may have actually been answered and didn't make the 30-minute cut.
Yeah, we record for 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, it was 120 on both of these. So it's probably in the other 90 minutes that didn't make the cut. Yeah,
definitely. Good insight. Appreciate you guys doing this again. We will do it for episode 5 and 6 as well. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the Women of the League behind the scenes podcast, Producer's Cut edition. Let us know what you think of the shows on social media. Be sure to check out StayDoubted and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.
Perfect. See ya.